I travel a good deal supporting people, but this one I've been looking forward to for a long time, because Ben Sasse, he's doing pretty darn well in this race, you know that? And so it's a thrill to be here and to see so many people, some of whom voted for me. I think you guys did, didn't you? Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I thought I did well in this room, and I appreciate that. And you know, if you're running for office, they tell you it's not a good idea to tell jokes, all right? Because you always offend someone. But I'm going to tell you one about the president, and I don't care if he's offended, all right? And this one came over the internet from a friend of mine, family friend, and it begins like this. The president had a check he wanted to cash, but he forgot to take his driver's license with him to the bank. So we got there, and the teller said, "I'm sorry, we can't cash your check unless you can prove who you are." And he said, "How do you want me to do that?" And she said, "Well, the other day, Andre Agassi, the famous tennis player, came in. He didn't have his driver's license. He put a little target up on the wall, took a tennis ball and a racket, and kept on banging it right into the middle of that target. So we knew that was Andre Agassi, and we cashed his check." And then a little later, Phil Mickelson came in, pro golfer, and he didn't have his driver's license either. He put a little target on the ground and took a golf ball and his golf club and just banged the golf ball right under that target time and time again. We knew that was Phil Mickelson. We cashed his check. She said, "Is there something you can do to prove who you are?" And he said, "Well, I don't have a clue." And she said, "Thank you, Mr. President. Do you want that in large or small bills?" All right? Now, that would be funnier if there weren't so much truth to it and it didn't have such serious implications. Because unfortunately, the president has not been as effective as I think a lot of people hoped he'd be. Look, I'm not a big fan of the president's, as you may understand. But even I've been disappointed by what I've seen over the last 6 years, because he promised some things but hasn't been able to deliver those things. And you know, I mean, he was going to deal with poverty, and yet there are more people in poverty today than ever before in our nation's history. And he, of course, is very concerned about income inequality. It hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. And he told people that if they had health insurance they wanted to keep and a doctor they wanted to keep, they could keep them. He didn't deliver on that promise either. But matter of fact, he told you that for the average family, their premium in health insurance would go down by $2,500 a family. Anybody seen their premium go down by that? No. And then, of course, he was going to try and help our education system. And yet, what did he do when he came into office? He pushed against charter schools in Washington, D.C. that were giving some of the poorest of the poor the chance to be coming out of poverty. It's been a presidency that at home has not delivered as it should have. Even the economy that should have come roaring back has taken a long, slow stumble, 6 years fighting to come back. And record numbers of people have dropped out of our employment system because of the discouragement of our economy under the president. It's been a terrible administration here at home. And then look internationally. And by the way, it's tempting to think that what's happened internationally and the president's mistakes are just because he's an inexperienced leader and not up to the job. But it's really a function of his foreign policy being very different than that America has followed ever since the Second World War and Harry Truman. When Harry Truman was president, he and his Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, said, "You know, we've got to write a new foreign policy for the country." And they sat down and did so. And in Dean Acheson's book, Present at the Creation, they said, these are the 3 principles America needs to follow. Number 1, we need to be involved in the world. Because when we're not involved in the world, bad people start doing bad things. So we're going to try and shape the events in the world to keep bad things from happening. Number 2, we're going to promote our values, American ideals, democracy, free enterprise, freedom. Number 3, we're going to be strong. We're going to have a military second to none. And no one would ever want to test our military. Those were the principles. This president came into office and went around the world and apologized for America, for being too strong, for being too involved. He thought our problem was not that we weren't involved enough, but instead we were too involved. And he pulled back, leading from behind, as his folks called it, which the rest of us called following. And then he went on to shrink our military, smaller and smaller and smaller. Our Navy will be smaller than that of China in 7 years. Russia already has a larger nuclear arsenal than ours, and he continues to shrink our military might. It's a very different foreign policy. And in my view, as a result of communicating this weakness abroad, you've seen some pretty bad actors do some pretty bad things. Whether it's Russia going into Ukraine and taking Crimea, or whether it's ISIS that the president called the JV team, which is now an enormous threat to the world, or even China standing and saying that they own the South China Sea and stay out unless they give you permission. The president has been wrong. I love, as you think about these things, it's his policy that was wrong, and Ronald Reagan figured it out. He said, you know, it's not that liberals are ignorant, it's just that what they know is wrong. And so the challenges we face are not just because of the leadership skill of the president, it's because he's wrong on so many issues. And the people who work with him in the Senate, who basically salute to him, are people who are also wrong on the issues. Our party, and Ben Sasse in particular, and those who serve with him and will serve with him, are dedicated to principles that will do some remarkable things. We actually will help get people out of poverty. Our policies will do that. We'll actually fix our schools and make them globally competitive again. Get them at the top of the world instead of down at the bottom third. Our policies will finally allow America to have an energy policy that takes advantage of our resources, allows us to have low-cost energy and bring more jobs back to do manufacturing in America. We'll have respect for the family farmer and respect for small businesses. You know, a lot of times we're not as effective in our communicating our message as we should be, and I'm to blame for that too. And I wish I'd have won. But let me tell you. So, for instance, when we talk about business and trying to make a state or a nation more attractive for small business and innovation, it's not because we're thinking about the business owner so much. It's we're saying we want the business to do well so it can hire more people. And if it hires more people, then more people get good jobs. And by the way, if there's enough competition between businesses trying to hire people, guess what they have to do? They have to raise wages to get them to come work at their business. So you get incomes going up, wages going up. That's what we're all about. So this campaign is about schools and fixing our schools and making them globally competitive and giving people choice in their education. This campaign is about getting people out of poverty. This campaign is about getting people back to work in better jobs. This campaign is about higher wages and higher incomes for the American people. This campaign is about energy independence. It's about military strength. It's making sure that we take care of our veterans in the way they deserve to be cared for. The president said it right. I don't always agree with the president, but he said something right the other day, and you've heard it before. He said, look, I'm not on the ballot, but my policies are. And that's absolutely right. Look, if we elect Democrat senators across the country and the Senate stays Democrat, the president's policies will be put in place, and they'll be intact. And that's on immigration, where he's going to offer amnesty. Have you ever, in American history, I'm not that old, I don't know all of American history, but I don't recall someone who's said something like this, that he's going to change immigration policy, but he won't tell you what he's going to do until after the election. Can you imagine? So if you believe in the president's policies on immigration, whatever the heck they are, and if you believe that we shouldn't have choice in education, and if you believe that we're not going to help small businesses grow and create more jobs, if you believe those things and you want to see American military get smaller and smaller, then you can vote for Democrat senators. But if you want to see America come back strong with the kind of values that have made Nebraska a great state and a leading state, then you're going to vote for Ben Sasse. You're going to vote for Republicans across the country. We're going to take back America. I love this great country and this great state. Thank you so very much. Ben Sasse, the next great senator from the state of Nebraska. Come on in, Ben.